Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. As always, I am Blake Smith, and with me are my partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts. How are y'all doing?
Still here. My booty's better.
Your booty.
Said I'm doing great, but Shelley, I would think you're having a lot of issues over there tonight. I don't know what's going on with you.
I don't know what is in the air, but I have had the worst attitude for the past 4 days. It's going to get better now because we're doing the podcast. Maybe tomorrow will be better. Let's keep a positive outlook on it. Yeah, I've avoided everything and everyone just because it's just better.
I think it's all the bee venom coursing through your veins right now.
It's the bee venom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Y'all, that was no joke. Thank you to the person who messaged Blake to tell me that I needed to only do like an eraser size of the bee venom with moisturizer or with body lotion. I had just grabbed a glob of that shit because it's been dry in Texas, so I'm like my skin's all dry, and I'm like I just start slathering that crap all over me. Do the legs, do the booty, do the sides, do the chest, do the arms, and I did the neck, and you guys saw at the end of that when I pulled my shirt down that my neck was red all the way down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I only had a few welts. I know, sexy, right?
See, it already says beautiful booty.
Oh, damn it.
But thank you to the person who messaged Blake and said that I did try it again yesterday. There were no welts this time. There was no massive pain, so I'm better now.
Well, yeah, you didn't cover yourself in concentrated poison yesterday, so I think you're fine.
You leave me alone.
I love that we start our episodes off with the most random shit ever.
Oh well. It'll be fine. They know us by now.
Mhm.
That's true. Well, tonight we are kicking it back to some true crime because when I was going through and realized that I realized that I had not covered a true crime case since I did the trio episode of the Black Dahlia this time last year. So it had been an entire year since I had done a true crime case. So
Well, dude,
I decided to do another one.
Those types of cases, especially one as big as the Black Dahlia, take a lot out of you. I can imagine why you haven't touched a true crime case since then.
Yeah, and I thought I was being safe with this one, the Café Society murder. I thought I was being, real safe with it. No, I wasn't. Nope. No, this one could have been a two-parter, but I'm going to give it to you in one tonight. So have either of y'all heard of this case, the Café Society murder?
Only in name. I don't know anything about it, actually, so this is one of the ones I'm excited to get into.
I've heard of it, and this is one that actually I had watched a documentary on it a long time ago, and I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of the story, except it's a high society murder.
Yeah,
that doesn't turn out the way you think it will. So,
well, it's definitely one that broke open. It took down. Well, I wouldn't say broke open, but took down the wall between the outside world and the Café Society about really kind of what was happening in this high society arena, if you will. So, I've got a lot to get through, so I'm going to jump right into it and get going with it. So,
sweet.
Sunday, October 24th, 1943, began like any other day in the bustling city of New York. The war abroad had cast a long shadow over daily life, yet the Café Society elite continued their escapades, insulated from the hardships most endured. But behind the locked door of an opulent Upper East Side apartment, a chilling discovery would soon unravel the glamorous facade. The night before, Patricia Lonergan, a dazzling socialite known for her striking beauty and sharp wit, had returned home from a whirlwind night out. At just 22 years old, Patricia was no stranger to the spotlight, her life a tapestry of glittering parties, high fashion, and privilege. But by evening, the vibrancy that had defined her presence would be extinguished in a scene that spoke of violence, betrayal, and the dark undercurrents beneath her polished world. Her son, Billy, slept peacefully in the nursery, oblivious to the horrors unfolding just down the hall. The household's governess, Miss Elizabeth Black, tended to her daily tasks, unaware that the locked bedroom door concealed a scene of chaos and bloodshed. Hours passed and unease began to creep into the apartment like a slow-building storm. And by 8 p.m., the once buzzing apartment fell eerily silent. It was then that Peter Elser, a close friend and trusted confidant of Patricia, arrived to investigate her unusual absence. With growing dread, he removed door hinges, and what he found inside would haunt him forever. The room was dimly lit, its shadows dancing ominously as his eyes adjusted to the macabre scene. There, Sprawled across the bed lay Patricia's lifeless body, a tragic scene to a life filled with promise and intrigue. Her death sent shockwaves through New York's high society, igniting a media frenzy and murder investigation that would expose the secrets of the Lonergan marriage and the volatile dynamics of the city's elite. What began as a mystery behind a locked door would soon unravel into a story of envy, deception, and the lengths one might go to protect or destroy a life built on appearances. Now, in the late 1930s and early 1940s, New York City was a bustling metropolis, a place where the hum of ambition and the weight of war blended seamlessly into the city's heartbeat. Yet amid the rationing, air raid drills, and somber radio bulletins about the war abroad, a different world existed, a dazzling counterpoint to the hardship that defined the era. This was the Café Society, a glittering constellation of wealth, privilege, and exclusivity where only the elite dared to tread. A Café Society wasn't just a social scene. It was an identity, a way of life. Its epicenters were the legendary nightclubs of Manhattan, places like the El Morocco, known for its iconic zebra-striped banquettes, and the Stork Club, where fortunes were spent on champagne and where being seen was just as important as what you wore. Now, these venues were the heart of a universe where the glittering elite came to flaunt their wealth, whisper gossip, and forge alliances, places where Shelley would thrive. No, I'm just kidding. But under the golden glow of chandeliers, Hollywood starlets, industrial peeps, and foreign royalty, yes, I said peeps, and foreign royalty mingled, their laughter mingling with the jazz rhythms that spilled onto the streets outside. At its core, Café Society was escapism, a bubble of opulence floating above the grim realities of the war. While soldiers marched into battle and families rationed sugar, the city socialites waltzed through evenings adorned with diamonds and furs, seemingly untouched by the world's trouble.
I would thrive there.
You would thrive, without a doubt.
I would thrive there. I'd be like, more champagne, please.
Well, this disconnect from reality defined their world, a world where appearances were everything and masks were worn as much to conceal as to dazzle. But this exclusivity came at a price. Café Society was as ruthless as it was glamorous. Invitations to the right party or a table at the right club can make or break a reputation. Gossip was the currency to the elite, and the whispers that flowed like champagne could destroy someone as easily as elevate them. Behind the sparkle of jewels and champagne glasses, egos clashed, rivalries festered, and alliances were carefully calculated. Again, Shelley would thrive. For every brilliant smile in a club photo, there was someone in the background scheming, jealous, or bitterly resentful. And into this rarefied world stepped Patricia Lonergan, a young woman who seemed born to command the attention it demanded. At just 22 years old, Patricia embodied the allure of Café Society. Youthful, beautiful, and vivacious, with a sharp wit that drew admiration and envy in equal measure. Her fashionable lifestyle, impeccable poise, and natural charisma ensured she never went unnoticed. Whether hosting a soiree or gliding into a club, her signature mink coat, she carried the effortless charm that made her one of the scene's most beloved figures. Yet, as enchanting as her presence was, it was impossible to ignore the undercurrents of tensions that surrounded her. While Patricia thrived in the spotlight, her husband, Wayne Lonergan, bristled at the demands of this glamorous life.
Oh, his name is Wayne. That's always trouble.
Well, the same world that celebrated Patricia alienated Wayne, and his simmering resentment often bubbled over into sarcastic remarks, none more cutting than his frequent quip, "the belle of the El Morocco," as he called her. The tension between them was more than personal. It reflected a divide between belonging and exclusion in a world that rarely forgave outsiders. This was Café Society, a glittering facade of opulence concealing dark shadows of ambition, envy, and deception. And it was here in the midst of this dazzling world that Patricia would meet her untimely end, exposing the fragility of the lives built within its gilded walls. Café Society was more than a collection of nightclubs or a social calendar. It was a living, breathing entity powered by its people. The names that graced its lists were as carefully curated as the exclusive menus of the clubs they frequented. Power, beauty, and charm were the admission tickets, but maintaining relevance required more than just wealth. The social elite moved through this world with a sharp awareness of their place within it, each figure contributing to the delicate balance of allure and intrigue that made cafe society both intoxicating and perilous. At its heart was a particular breed of individual, the socialite. These were the people who lived to be seen, who thrived on the validation of a well-placed photograph or a whisper of admiration in hushed circles, such as Patricia. And Patricia epitomized this archetype. She wasn't merely a participant in cafe society, she was a centerpiece. Patricia's intelligence and vivacious personality set her apart from the ornamental figures who floated aimlessly through the scene. She was not content to fade into the background of the clubs she frequented. Instead, she commanded the room, her presence as deliberate as her meticulously curated outfits. But Patricia's world wasn't populated by admirers alone. Figures like Peter Elser, a young Marine captain and one of Patricia's trusted confidants, provided a glimpse into the blurred lines between friendship and opportunism that characterized cafe society relationships. Peter was a regular fixture in Patricia's social circle, and his loyalty to her seemed genuine. However, the motives of others were often less clear. In this world, connections could be currency, and even genuine friendships were never immune to the specter of gossip or betrayal. Beneath the glittering exterior, cafe society thrived on a delicate tension between admiration and envy. For every socialite basking in the limelight, there were those on the periphery eager to climb the ladder or watch it crumble. Well, Patricia Hartley Burton, born on September 1st, 1921, entered a world of wealth and privilege that few could imagine. The daughter of William Oliver Burton and Lucille Wolfe, her early life unfolded against a backdrop of luxury, societal expectation, and familial turmoil. The Burtons' wealth originated from William, her father's grandfather, Emanuel Bernheimer, co-founder of the successful Constance Brewery and pivotal figure in establishing the United States Brewers Association. So you can tell these people were very, very well connected.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this
I feel
legacy
like I need to put on my fur just to even listen to this.
I got my grandmother's blue fox fur if you want to come borrow it real quick.
Child, I've got one that's.
No, you got your you got a few.
I got a mink and I got a purple mink, child. Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, you do have the purple one. You're right.
I do have the purple one. Yeah, I was about to grab that one out of the closet. I'm like, I may have to get it before this episode's over just to fit in.
Well, this legacy placed the Burtons among America's financial elite, allowing Patricia to grow up in the lap of opulence. From the beginning, Patricia's life was anything but ordinary. Her parents, steeped in wealth and high social standing, divided their time between their New York apartment near Park Avenue and their Parisian residence at the Via des Arts in Montmartre. Oh, yeah, she was popping the ocean back and forth growing up. Yeah.
She's loaded.
Yeah. Well, Patricia's childhood was shaped by this transatlantic lifestyle, as well as by the constant presence of two governesses tasked with her care. These women ensured that Patricia rarely disrupted her parents' lavish social lives or their routines. It was a detached kind of nurturing, reflective of the norms within high society. Yet the grandeur of her surroundings belied the tension brewing in her family. Her parents' marriage, though initially a union of privilege, began to unravel shortly after her birth. William, allegedly grappling with his own sexual identity, struggled to conform to the expectations of a traditional family man. This internal conflict spilled over into his relationship with Lucille, manifesting in accusations of violence, cruelty, and neglect. And by the time Patricia was 4 years old, Lucille alleged incidents ranging from verbal abuse to physical violence, including William striking her and pushing her down the stairs. And at one point, William even took Patricia away to an undisclosed location, cutting Lucille off from her daughter completely. Well, these tumultuous years culminated in 1925 when Lucille sought legal separation, citing William's cruelty. The courts in both New York and Paris found her claims credible, and she was granted custody of Patricia. Despite the legal and emotional battles, William and Lucille's love for their daughter remained a unifying force. And in 1930, in a very surprising move, the couple remarried in France. Yeah. And Lucille later admitted that the reconciliation was largely for Patricia's sake, as both parents, quote, worshipped her. Go ahead.
Don't do it for the kids. It's not going to end up well for anybody. Never do that.
Yep, I agree. Well, for a time, the family seemed to regain stability, traveling frequently between the French Riviera and New York throughout the 1930s. And Patricia's education mirrored the sophistication of her upbringing. Private tutors and elite schools shaped her into a young woman with both intelligence and poise. Yet, her parents maintained strict control over her appearance and behavior during her formative years. As a teenager, Patricia was forbidden from attending late-night parties, styling her hair, and even wearing red lipstick. Now, these restrictions, however, would not define her forever. By the time she reached adulthood, Patricia had blossomed into a modern woman of her era, fully embracing her independence and sense of style. Her upbringing, though lavish, was far from idyllic. The weight of her parents' fraught relationship and the expectations of high society likely shaped her resilience and adaptability. Patricia learned early on how to navigate a world where appearances were paramount and conflict often simmered beneath the surface. As she emerged into adulthood, these lessons would serve her well in the cutthroat realm of Café society. However, they would also leave her vulnerable as the pressures of maintaining her image collided with the private struggles she kept hidden from view. Now, while Patricia's childhood unfolded within the gilded walls of privilege and refinement, Wayne Thomas Lonergan's early years painted a very different picture. Born on January 14, 1918 in Toronto, Ontario, Wayne entered the world during a time of upheaval. The Great War was nearing its bloody conclusion and a devastating influenza pandemic loomed on the horizon. And against this turbulent backdrop, Wayne was raised in a middle-class family, worlds apart from the wealth and glamour that defined Patricia's upbringing. The Lonergans lived in a modest Edwardian-style home in Toronto's Bathurst and Bloor neighborhood, and Wayne's father, Thomas Lonergan, worked as an agent for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. Though hardworking, Thomas struggled to provide the financial security that would insulate his family from hardship. Wayne's mother, Clara Lonergan, battled against personal challenges of her own. Suffering from extreme anxiety and manic depressive psychosis, Clara's mental health issues often left her detached from her children, including Wayne. Her struggles led to multiple hospitalizations throughout Wayne's childhood, further fracturing the family dynamic. Despite these hardships, Wayne's early life was not without its moments of stability. He grew up in a tight-knit, predominantly Irish Catholic community. However, even this came with challenges. In Toronto, Irish Catholics face systemic prejudice from the Protestant-dominated society, making social mobility very difficult. These barriers, coupled with his family's strained circumstances, shaped Wayne's understanding of the world as a place where belonging was elusive and respect had to be earned or taken. Now, academically, Wayne showed promise. His IQ of 123 placed him in the very superior intelligence range. Yeah, 123.
What was Einstein's?
Oh, don't get me
Wasn't it
wrong.
like 160 or something like that?
I thought 160 was the top number, but
I don't know.
I thought I don't know. Einstein's was not as high as you would think, strangely enough, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's a very high IQ score.
Yeah, he was in the very superior intelligence range.
But
this potential was often overshadowed by behavioral issues. By the time he reached adolescence, Wayne's life took a darker turn. In 1932, at just 14 years old, he was arrested for stealing items from a store. Though it was his first offense and he was placed on probation, the incident marked the beginning of a pattern. Less than a year later, Wayne violated his probation by running away to Windsor, Ontario, leading to a short stint at St. John's Industrial School. Now, at St. John's, Wayne received a mix of academic and vocational training intended to reform boys who showed, quote, tendencies which, if unchecked, would lead them to lives of wrongdoing.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute. So we have an answer. So the top number on an IQ score is 200. Einstein's was 168. Thank you, Mr. Wandell.
Oh, so freaking close. I was close. Whatever. Yet the experience at St. John's did little to deter him. By the age of 16, he was arrested again, this time for stealing bicycles, and he served a 30-day jail sentence.
Damn, to be smart, he ain't never going to learn, is he?
Yeah. Well, these formative years, marked by instability and brushes with the law, would have a profound impact on Wayne's worldview, instilling a resilience born of necessity, but also a sense of defiance. And family tragedies compounded these difficulties. In 1934, Wayne's father died suddenly of a coronary thrombosis. On the very same day that happened, Wayne was arrested yet again, underscoring the chaos that seemed to follow him. His mother's continued mental health struggles, coupled with the loss of his father, left Wayne without a strong familial anchor. This lack of stability may have contributed to his increasingly erratic behavior and complicated sense of identity. Now, a pivotal aspect of Wayne's life, though rarely openly discussed during his youth, was his sexual orientation. Even as a teenager, he reportedly bragged to his friends about, quote, making easy money through male perverts, end quote, which was a euphemism of the time for a homosexual man. I am not going to wash away history here. We're going to tell it how it is. These are his quotes here. So in a deeply conservative society, Wayne's bisexuality would have been seen not only as a personal taboo, but also as a threat to his ability to assimilate into traditional roles. This tension between who he was and who he felt he needed to be would follow him into adulthood, complicating his relationships and fueling inner conflict. Go ahead, Ryan.
So was he saying, because he said he made easy money doing that, was he trying to cover up by saying, oh, I just do it for the cash? Is that what he was? Okay, gotcha.
Basically, that's what he would brag to his friends. Like, I can make a lot of money sleeping with these men than I can doing anything else. So
he's not homosexual now. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking to make sure I understand.
It's like selling feet pictures on OnlyFans, I guess. Hey,
don't you judge me.
If you got it, you feel comfortable doing it, do it, buddy.
For him though, it's plausible deniability, especially in that time, because he's like, oh no, I'm not that way. I just do it for the money.
You got to think this is well back when. This is the 1930s.
Right.
He's like, oh, I just do it for the money. So yeah.
And Chad says $20 is $20. So
I'm saying, man, you can sell feet pictures on OnlyFans for so freaking cheap. Hey, you know what? I don't kink shame, and I actually support all my sex worker friends. I love it. If you got the confidence to do it, go do it. I don't.
Same, I'm with you.
I judge myself looking in the mirror. I ain't gonna let you do it.
But I support anybody who does.
Absolutely.
I'd be like, that's how I got bee venom on my booty. That's why I'd be all judgy. Yeah. Anyway, not to digress.
Wayne's well, I will say, I'll put a disclaimer right here. There is a lot of talk about his bisexuality throughout this, and I am not going to wash history away or cover it up or anything like that. There's going to be some pretty blunt statements that I will say that was said during the time, but we are talking about the 30s, 40s, and 50s here.
Right.
So, anyways. Well, Wayne's upbringing was a sharp contrast to Patricia's. While she was raised to navigate the rarefied world of high society, Wayne's early years were defined by struggle, rejection, and survival. Yet, despite their differences, their paths would ultimately intersect in the glittering world of Café society. Wayne's charm and resourcefulness helped him climb into a social sphere that had long been out of reach, but the insecurities and scars of his past were never far behind. These stark differences in their upbringings would later play a critical role in the dynamics of their relationship. Now, Patricia Burton's life seemed destined for elegance and wealth. As an heiress to a brewery fortune, I cannot talk all of a sudden. She was a shining star of Café society. Beautiful, poised, and moving effortlessly through New York's elite social circles. Her life was one of luxury and glamour. Wayne Lonergan, by contrast, came from that modest working-class roots in Toronto, Canada. Now, his journey into Patricia's world began in 1939 when he worked at the New York World's Fair as a bus dispatcher. Earning $135 a month for more than 100 hours of work per week, Wayne's responsibilities included ensuring schedules ran smoothly and that transportation demands were met. Now, the exact details of Wayne and Patricia's introduction are unclear. Some say Wayne first encountered Patricia's father, William Burton, while working at the fair, and others claimed a manager at the George Washington Hotel introduced Wayne to the Burtons one evening during dinner. But what is certain is that Wayne's connection with William Burton came first, and it wasn't merely platonic. William, alleged to be bisexual as well and known for assisting young men financially, quickly took a liking to Wayne. And Wayne spent considerable time at William's Ritz Tower apartment, sparking rumors of a romantic relationship. And though Wayne later acknowledged William's bisexuality, he insisted his own interest has always been in Patricia. Still, speculation lingered, and Williams' involvement with Wayne added layers of complexity to this eventual marriage to Patricia.
Well, and that was not uncommon in the day, though.
Right.
It's like you couldn't just come out and say, I'm homosexual, or I like only men, or I like only women. It just wasn't. It wasn't done. It wasn't accepted, and there were a lot of women who played the part of beards too.
Oh yeah,
and probably a lot of men who played the part of beards too. The women who had lovers that were. Females as well, and men who had lovers who were men. I hate that word, lovers. It's gross.
They called it a velvet wedding, didn't they? Isn't that what the deal was? Where it was like two people who are obviously not interested in each other, but they're doing it to cover up for what was going on at the time.
I don't know what they called it back then. They call it a lavender marriage now.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Velvet wedding.
Velvet marriage. Goddamn. Lavender marriage. Full lavender marriage.
Okay, that's
basically. Wait, the lavender marriage is which one?
Basically, I mean, it's the biggest thing right now that's going right now is a lavender marriage between a gay man and a straight woman.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, I didn't know that. I don't like the scent of lavender. It smells like old lady asshole. Yuck.
It's just called a lavender marriage. You can have all the benefits of a straight marriage, but you have all the benefits of like a straight woman, gay man marriage.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of them
you just each
weddings.
have your own. It's one of the velvet weddings. Jesus Christ. All right, moving on, because we'll never get off that topic.
Okay. All right.
Well, when William Burton died suddenly of a heart attack on October 1st, 1940, Patricia inherited a $230,000 trust fund, which is worth $3.4 million today. On September 1st, 1942, her 21st birthday, Patricia's trust fund began providing her with a $1,219 per month payment, or equivalent to $216,000 annually today.
Wow.
So she's making $216,000 a year off her trust fund.
Doing nothing.
Added to this were income from bonds, investments, and a looming $7 million inheritance from her grandmother's estate. Patricia's wealth was secure, but her future happiness was less so. Now, Lucille Burton, Patricia's mother, returned from Europe following William's death and immediately disapproved of Wayne. Knowing of his connection to her late husband, Lucille attempted to remove Wayne from Patricia's life. She whisked her daughter away to Santa Barbara, California, hoping the sunny shores and distance would sever their relationship. But Wayne was nothing if not persistent. Borrowing money from acquaintances, he purchased a $350 return ticket to Los Angeles, embarking on a journey that required several stops and up to 15 hours of travel during that time.
Damn.
And by late July 1941, Wayne reunited with Patricia, and the couple defied Lucille's wishes. And on July 30th, 1941, they eloped in Las Vegas. Scandal. High society. They eloped. Well, from the start, their marriage was a study in contradictions. Wayne lied about his finances, claiming to have investments and a steady income. Patricia either believed him or chose to overlook the truth.
Red flag. Yeah, it's fine.
But Patricia either believed him or chose to overlook the truth. So Café Society was quick to speculate about their union. Now, to some, it was a fairy tale, the glamorous heiress falling for a charming outsider. And to others, it was very clear that Wayne was a social climber with eyes on Patricia's fortune. Yet Patricia brushed the whispers aside, stating in later years, quote, "If he was good enough for my father, he was good enough for me."
Does that mean he banged her father?
There's a rumor that her father and Wayne were lovers.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I cannot marry you if you into my daddy. It's just I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't like to share. So
yeah,
it's not you, it's me. It's not my thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, they lived. So the couple's life in New York. They moved back there. They go back to New York. Their couple's life in New York was one of opulence. They lived in a 6-room suite on Park Avenue, complete with a butler, maid, and laundry girl. Patricia's income, now at $1,546 per month, or $23,000 per month today, financed their lavish lifestyle, while Wayne received a $700 monthly allowance.
Well, hell.
His daily
Big spender.
his daily routine reflected his lack of responsibility. He rose late, had breakfast, and often returned to bed until the afternoon. Afternoons were spent playing bridge, sometimes for money, but his card playing endeavors ended in disgrace. Patricia's mother, Lucille, trying to integrate Wayne into her social circles, encouraged her friends to include him in their games. When they accused Wayne of cheating, Lucille was mortified.
Hold on, I thought she hated Wayne. I thought she didn't want anything to do with him, but
she tried to get her daughter away from him, and then whenever I guess her daughter married him, she
when
was
it was
like,
inevitable.
well, shit,
Right.
yeah.
Fine,
Well-
play bridge with Martha.
Well, Wayne's nights were filled with outings to exclusive nightclubs like the Stork Club and El Morocco. Sometimes he brought Patricia, but more often he went alone. And it wasn't uncommon for Wayne to abandon Patricia at a club, choosing instead to mingle with other women and men. His bisexuality, though rarely discussed openly, was an open secret. Wayne was frequently seen at the Plaza Hotel steam baths and friends' residences, sometimes bringing strangers, both men and women, back to their or his marital apartment. Yeah, bringing them back to the apartment.
That's ballsy. Yeah, you're gonna be
Yeah.
having an affair in the same bed that you're hanging out with your wife in. That
Yeah.
that is some serious cojones.
I may be jumping your story, but is there any evidence that Patricia was into that as well, or is
I was not able to find anything about that.
okay?
Yeah. Then you're actually not jumping. I'm sorry, because I didn't have it to put in there because I wasn't able to find it.
Okay,
So I think
So
it
as
was
far
just
as-
one of those things that, hey, I'm married. Hey, he's into the, he does this stuff, and kind of the times, the era back then, it
Uh-huh.
was just like kind of almost turn the other cheek weirdness. You don't get divorced. That doesn't happen.
right.
So I'm just kind of stuck with it.
Okay,
So you make the best of it, right? You're like,
yeah,
okay,
right.
you go do whatever you want to do. I'll do whatever I want to do. And
right.
in public, we are happily married.
And she knew it was happening because of all the scuttlebutt in the society, high
There's
society.
so
Sometimes
much
she
rumor.
couldn't.
Yeah, there's so
Right.
much rumor going around at this point, and obviously we know she knew about it because of her later quote saying, "If he was good enough for my father, he's good enough for me."
Okay,
So she knows about it.
okay.
Well, arguments between Wayne and Patricia became increasingly heated during this time. Friends described their relationship as volatile, with frequent shouting matches erupting over Wayne's behavior. Patricia often accused Wayne of embarrassing her in public and neglecting their marriage for his own social pursuits. On more than one occasion, she was overheard lamenting his apparent lack of respect for her as his wife. And the tension escalated as Wayne dismissed Patricia's frustrations, leading to vicious verbal confrontations that left both parties emotionally drained. Well, despite the tensions, the couple had a son, William or Billy Wayne Lonergan, born July 1st, 1942. It's almost like, I think, from what I understood through the story, I read the book Details Are Imprintable by Alan Levine. Excellent book, goes far into detail on this, very comprehensive on this case. From what I was understanding of this, they basically were like, let's have a child. That'll fix it.
That's a trap so many couples fall into.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, and it might have validated the marriage, been
Mhm.
like, don't believe these rumors because we had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, obviously we're having sex and it don't
Right.
mind your business, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. If it's broke, Junior ain't gonna fix it.
Yeah. Well, Wayne admitted he wasn't a, quote, normal father. He rarely spent time with Billy and showed little concern for the child's well-being. Patricia, while not entirely indifferent, maintained her active social life and relied on Miss Elizabeth Black, a 63-year-old English governess, to care for Billy. This is actually a picture of Miss Black
wow.
and Billy. The arrangement, common for wealthy families, allowed Patricia to resume her nights of dancing at private parties and exclusive clubs. However, her choice to prioritize her social engagements over parenting duties only exacerbated the existing rift between her and Wayne. Wayne, for his part, grew increasingly detached from his responsibilities as a father. Friends noted that he would come and go from the apartment with little regard for Billy's schedule or well-being. And Patricia, though outwardly unbothered, was overheard remarking that Wayne's indifference toward their son, mirrored his attitude toward their marriage. The birth of Billy, rather than bringing them closer, magnified their differences and added yet another layer of tension to their already volatile relationship. And by 1943, the cracks in their marriage had become chasms. Patricia confided to her mother that marrying Wayne had been a mistake. Their arguments became legendary among friends, often escalating into screaming matches. One acquaintance recalled Patricia's sharp words to Wayne, saying, quote, "I suppose that's to be expected when a girl marries a man who is beneath her."
Those are fighting words.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in June of 1943,
She literally said, "With your broke ass." That's what.
that's basically what just happened. Yeah. Well, in June 1943, Patricia ordered Wayne out of their Park Avenue suite. He spent part of the summer at Cherry Grove Fire Island, a haven for gay men, before returning to New York and renting an apartment on East 58th Street, just a mile from Patricia's new residence at 313 East 51st Street. Despite the separation, Patricia occasionally gave Wayne lump sum payments and even paid for his photography school tuition, enabling him to secure small jobs. Sorry.
So she was trying to get him out of the house. Like, could you get out and go do something? Anything. I'll pay for it. Just go do it. Just go ahead. How about you go learn how to take a picture? You'd be good at that, and that'd be nice. You can take pictures of your son. Spend some time with him, you loser. No, sorry. I'm sorry. That might have been my own anger. Anyway, go ahead. Continue on.
Wayne, however, hoped for reconciliation. He sent Patricia a telegram apologizing for a rather nasty argument, stating, quote, "Frightfully sorry about inexcusable behavior. Our Irish temperament is too much. I adore you, and I always will. My tired old heart beats for you. Love, Wayne." But Patricia had already moved on. She didn't give a shit.
You tired old ass could just stay there too.
Less than a week later, after she kicked him out, she revised her will, removing Wayne as the sole beneficiary and naming Billy instead. This ensured that her family's $7 million fortune would bypass Wayne completely.
Good for her.
Furious upon learning of the change, Wayne's frustrations grew. And by this point, Wayne's life had unraveled. His marriage had collapsed, his employment prospects were bleak, and he was entirely dependent on Patricia's financial support. Desperate to regain stability, he returned to Canada and enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He became a second-class aircraftman and began training at the University of Toronto. To fund his plans, Wayne pawned jewelry and hoped to visit New York during a 48-hour leave, clinging to the hope of seeing Billy, perhaps Patricia, again. Their marriage, which began with glamour and defiance, ended in bitterness and estrangement. That word. The words are hard. The cracks that had widened over time would soon set the stage for a story that would captivate and horrify New York's elite. So we're still in 1943, by the way. So she kicks his ass to the curb in June of 43. And during that time, until what I just told you, there's probably about a 4 or 5 month span that is her changing her will a week later.
Damn.
And then the movement of him getting to Canada and becoming an aircraftman.
So
they
how did he
move rather
find
fast.
out that she changed her will? Did she tell him? Because that's my question.
I
Because
believe
like
from what
if
I
you change your
understood-
will, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Yeah. I believe that she told him from what I understood from the story.
Okay. Well, now
He found
he's
out
got
about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he found out. Let's say he found
Yeah.
out. I don't know how he found out, but
Yeah.
interesting. I bet he suddenly takes a whole lot of interest in Billy now, in Billy Wayne.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he should have learned how to take those pictures. He wouldn't have been worried about whether or not he'd have a job. Okay.
Well, Patricia's final weekend and Lonergan's furlough weekend began under the cloak of anticipation and desperation. On Friday, October 22nd, 1943, Wayne Lonergan stepped off his flight at LaGuardia Field at 2:30 a.m. Despite wartime restrictions on non-essential travel, he had secured the necessary papers to visit New York City. This wasn't just another furlough. It was a fleeting opportunity to grasp at fragments of his unraveling life. So as you can tell, this man is boarding the plane in this mentality.
Yeah,
Right.
dude, walk away. Don't beg. It's beneath you. Stop it. She don't want you. Go somewhere else. Bye-bye. Don't
Well,
be desperate. You sounding thirsty. Go away.
By 3 a.m., he arrived at the opulent apartment of John Frederick Artis, who had graciously offered him a place to stay. Exhausted from the journey, Lonergan slipped into sleep in a borrowed bed in a familiar city. After a few hours of rest, Lonergan joined Hargis for breakfast. Though Hargis had welcomed him into his home, the arrangement came with conditions. Wayne could stay, but lunches and dinners were to be eaten elsewhere. Hargis also promised an introduction to a friend, Jean Murphy Jabourg, which is going to take place later that day. It should be a brief interlude of New York's high society for the disheveled airmen. But by mid-morning, the weekend's shadows began to creep in. At 11 a.m., Lonergan stood at the office of Dr. Isidore McKell, seeking to buy arsenic. Claiming it was for an acquaintance, he offered an alarming $100 for a gram, which, by the way, is enough to kill 50 people.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of poison. Yeah,
Let's-
he's just buying it for a buddy. My buddy needs some arsenic.
Right.
What?
So let's not make it obvious what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he have been better off saying that, there's an apartment building over here. My friend asked me to get some because he has a rat infestation. We have to have enough to kill all the rats. Would a gram be enough?
Well, you would think.
You would think. See, that's how they get. Criminals are not smart. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, Dr. McKell, irritated by an unpaid bill, dismissed him with instructions to return later. So he's not telling him no, but he's saying come back around 5. That's basically what it was. Leaving the encounter unresolved, Lonergan sought solace in companionship, and he joined 2 friends, Marcella Desarnaud and Sylvia French, for lunch at the Marguerite Hotel. The lighthearted conversation over fine dining momentarily masked the tension simmering beneath the surface. Afterward, Lonergan wandered the windy streets of Manhattan, pausing to buy 3 small bottles of brandy and a $14 stuffed elephant for his 18-month-old son, Billy. Yet the brief respite turned clumsy during a later visit to Sylvia's apartment for a drink when he left the elephant behind. And he returns to Dr. McKell's office at 5 p.m. Lonergan's attempt to purchase arsenic or strychnine this time was rebuffed.
The doctor's just locking up. Fuck you again. You gotta go. Go somewhere else, please.
Well, frustrated but undeterred, he headed back to Hargis's apartment, where he placed a call to Patricia's home. Speaking to the maid, Marie Tanzoshk, he asked her to keep Billy awake for his visit. And at 6 p.m., Lonergan arrived at Patricia's door. Patricia was absent, but the maid, Marie, led him to the nursery, where he spent 45 tender minutes with his son, promising to return the next day with the toy elephant. By 7:15 p.m., the tone of the evening shifted as Lonergan arrived at Murphy Jabourg's apartment. The 2 shared drinks once they got back to, so he goes to pick up Jabourg and comes back to Hargis's apartment. They shared drinks there before they head to the Imperial Theater. They arrived just in time for the 8:30 p.m. curtain, settling in for an evening of culture and escapism. And following the show, they indulged a leisurely progression through Manhattan's nightlife, dining at the 21 Club and toasting the night away at the Blue Angel Café. By the time they returned to Hargis's apartment for a final nightcap, it was nearly 3 a.m. Lonergan walked Jabourg home, where their parting left questions. Lonergan claimed a very romantic farewell with lots of kissing and grabbing of her breasts, as he put it, while basically Jabourg was like, nothing fucking happened.
Okay.
None of that happened. But the night, however, was far from over. At 4 a.m. on Sunday, October 24th, Jabourg went to bed alone at her apartment. Lonergan, restless, wandered the streets until he encountered Murray Wooster, an American soldier in uniform. Wooster needed a place to stay, and Lonergan, ever the opportunist, offered him the guest bedroom at Hargis's apartment. Yet what began as an act of kindness spiraled into chaos. Lonergan later claimed the sexual encounter led to a violent altercation during which Wooster scratched his face. Hours later, Lonergan awoke to find Wooster stealing his uniform and watch. A second fight ensued, and Wooster fled, leaving Lonergan humiliated and exhausted. By 10 a.m. that next morning, on October 24th, Lonergan joined Hargis's butler, Emil Peters, for breakfast. Peters noted the airman's irritability, which was a reflection of the night's events, and Lonergan phoned Jabourg again, inviting her to lunch at the plaza, to which she initially declined. Lonergan went to go pick up the toy elephant from Sylvia French's apartment, and Sylvia, surprised to see him in civilian clothes this time because he's an aircraftman, he'd been in his uniform this whole time, questioned his appearance. He explained that he had been in a, quote, brawl with a soldier who had stolen his uniform. Sylvia found the story peculiar and noted she didn't see any scratches on his face. And later, at approximately 12:30 p.m., Lonergan was seen at Patricia's main entrance. When he knocked, no one answered. He left a toy elephant by the door in the vestibule with a note that read, "To Billy, from Dad." The gesture, while seemingly thoughtful, struck an odd chord to many later on. Why wouldn't he want to hand the toy to his son directly? While returning to Hargis's apartment, Lonergan again phoned Schaberg, and his persistence, inviting her 8-year-old son to join, wore her down. And when he arrived at her apartment at 1 p.m., his disheveled appearance and mismatched clothes borrowed from Hargis drew questions. His vague explanation of the robbery only deepened her unease as she asked more probing questions. This woman was smart. I could not list off all the questions she asked, but she asked a fuck ton of questions to this man.
Mm-hmm.
Who was
and
this
this
man?
is all happening at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
This is in the afternoon now on October 24th. So we've gone basically from him landing at 2 a.m. October 23rd to him going to Hargis's. He sleeps a little bit, has breakfast with them, starts doing this whole thing of trying to get the strychnine, the arsenic. He goes to have lunch with 2 friends, buys an elephant, leaves it at an apartment, goes back to the doctor, is denied, goes to the theater that night, and then basically back to Schaberg's apartment where he wanders the street to meet Wooster, brings him back. There's a fight, uniform stolen. Now we're on to the next day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're now.
Yeah, I don't think. Right. I don't think Wooster the Rooster even exists, to be honest with you. Isn't that what he is?
Well, together with her son, they lunched at the plaza where she later admitted she noted no scratches on Lonergan's face. And at 3:30 p.m., Lonergan returned to Hargis's apartment and left a note of gratitude. The note read, "John, thank you so much for the use of your flat. Due to a slight case of mistaken trust, I lost my uniform and so have borrowed a jacket and trousers from you. I shall return them on my arrival in Toronto. Yours, Wayne. I'll call you and tell you about it." He then made his way to LaGuardia Airport for a 7:10 p.m. flight to Toronto, and by 9:15, the plane touched down, marking the end of his furlough. Yet for Wayne Lonergan, the events of this weekend were only the beginning of a far darker journey. Because Saturday, October 23rd, 1943, began unremarkably for Patricia. The clock edged toward mid-morning before she stirred from bed, the city already alive with its usual hum of weekend activity. It was 11:30 a.m. when she finally rose, and her maid, Marie Tanzosh, arrived with breakfast to her bedroom. We're going back through the weekend now, by the way.
Right.
Patricia's perspective. The maid busied herself ironing a yellow blouse Patricia intended to wear the next day, a small preparation for a planned trip to the countryside. By 2 p.m., Patricia had kissed her young son Billy goodbye, leaving him in the trusted care of Miss Black, the governess. Her instructions were clear, as always. If Wayne Lonergan, her estranged husband, wanted to visit Billy during his stay in New York, he was welcome to do so. And with that, Patricia left her apartment, carrying a clothes bag containing her evening outfit. She walked a short distance to the apartment of her close friend, and the afternoon drifted by in familiar companionship. They gossiped, whiled away the hours playing gin rummy, and as evening approached, Patricia prepared for her night out with Mario Enzo Gabellini, a man whose reputation as a charming scoundrel was well known to her. Though she had
looks like a very good charming scoundrel too. Hey.
Though she had no illusions about his intentions, Patricia found him entertaining company, especially for an evening spent in the lively world of Manhattan nightlife. She slipped into her carefully chosen attire, a mink jacket, a black silk dress, a black hat, nylon hose, and black shoes, each piece carefully assembled for the evening's plan. What's up, Ryan?
Now, do we know if Mario is connected in any way? Is he mobbed up at all?
Not that I was able to find.
Okay. Just curious.
Gabellini arrived at 7:30 p.m., running late, much to Patricia's annoyance. However, her frustration didn't last long, and soon the two departed for the Peter Cooper Hotel. They were joined by a lively group, Thomas Farrell Jr., his girlfriend Jean Goodwin, and their mutual friend Robert Daisy. Drinks flowed easily as the group settled in, enjoying each other's company. Dinner followed at Luisa's, a cozy restaurant down the road. And over hors d'oeuvres, broiled lamb chops, and a cup of black coffee, Patricia laughed and chatted, sharing glimpses of her life with the group. She spoke candidly about her relationship with Wayne, describing it as cordial and expressing no desire to be his enemy. The evening progressed with drinks at Luisa's bar, where the conversation turned lively and the bonds among the group grew. Around 12:30 a.m., they made their way to the Stork Club, the legendary haunt of Manhattan's Café society. Patricia, poised and elegant, unknowingly graced the glamorous venue for the final time. And unbeknownst to her, Wayne Lonergan and his companion, Murphy Giberg, had been turned away at the door that very night, a brief brush with fate. And by 4:30 a.m., the group's night began to wind down. They left the Stork Club and headed to a friend's suite at the Peter Cooper Hotel, joined by a Navy lieutenant and his girlfriend they had met along the way. Drinks and an early breakfast marked the close of their long evening, with Patricia remaining at the suite until just after 6 a.m. These bitches party all night long. I'd have been in bed like 10 hours ago.
Not me.
Just saying.
Not
Not
going
me.
to bed.
Nah, man, you sleep when you're dead.
Just saying. Well, the first light of Sunday morning, October 24th, 1943, painted the city as Patricia and Gabellini climbed into a taxi bound for her apartment. The ride was quiet, the energy of the evening now replaced by fatigue. Upon arriving at her home, Gabellini asked the driver to wait while he escorted Patricia up the steps. He intended to retrieve a small camel hair coat he left her apartment a few days earlier. They stepped into the vestibule, where Patricia informed him very firmly that he could collect his coat another time. And after parting ways, Patricia quietly entered her bedroom. She undressed, leaving her mink coat and other clothing neatly on a settee, and locked her bedroom door behind her. Gabellini returned to his own apartment no more than 30 minutes later. Now, by 7 a.m., Miss Black, the family governess, had risen to start her day. She moved through the apartment, tending to Billy, Patricia's young son, who remained blissfully unaware of the events that would soon shatter their lives. Everything seemed normal. Miss Black noted no sounds or disturbances from behind Patricia's locked bedroom door, where she had just retreated just half an hour earlier after a long night out. At approximately 9 a.m., Annalise Schomburg, the maid for the apartment above, she's maid, governess, nurse, for the apartment above Patricia's, heard a woman scream. The cries pierced the early morning quiet, chilling Annalise. "What are you doing? Stop that. Oh my." But just as quickly as the commotion began, it was silenced. A faint shuffling sound followed, and then nothing. Annalise, hesitant to overstep her position as a servant in someone else's household, decided against investigating. Now, Miss Black, preoccupied in the kitchen at the time, remained oblivious to the incident entirely. Sometime that morning, the phone rang, breaking the stillness. Miss Black answered, hearing the voice of Gabellini. Gabellini asked Miss Black to wake Patricia, hoping she might accompany him on a trip to the country. Miss Black politely explained that Patricia was still sleeping, but Gabellini was insistent. Reluctantly, Miss Black walked to Patricia's locked door, knocked softly, and waited. Silence. She returned to the phone, informing Gabellini that Patricia didn't like to be disturbed and advised him to try again later. He called again 20 minutes later, but still, Patricia did not answer the door when another knock was attempted. What you got?
Oh, no, I'm just thinking this is interesting.
Well, at 10 a.m., Miss Black left the apartment, taking Billy for his usual morning walk, and the apartment was left empty, and Patricia's locked door went unchecked. When they returned at 12 p.m., Miss Black noted that nothing had changed. Patricia's door remained closed, and the apartment was as quiet as it had been when she left. At 2 p.m., while tidying the vestibule, Miss Black discovered a package lying unopened. Turns out this was the package. I kept waiting for this big, drawn-out surprise of what this package in the vestibule was. It's the fucking toy elephant. I'm just giving that away right now. Because it carries on through the whole damn book. And finally, it's like, oh, it's a toy elephant. I was so mad. I was like, this package is going to have something to do. No, I'm going to tell you right now, this little package in the vestibule is the fucking toy elephant.
Right, but it is evidence that he was there.
But still, it is. But goddamn. Well, checking Patricia's door once more, she found it locked. The silence now unsettling. Her concern deepened. At 3 p.m., worry compelled Miss Black to take action. Gathering Billy, she left the apartment to visit Lucille, Patricia's mother, at the Hotel Elysee. Lucille listened as Miss Black recounted her concerns, her face tightening with worry. Miss Black returned home by 5:30 p.m., but her unease had grown into dread. She picked up the phone and called Lucille, who wasted no time hurrying to the apartment. Lucille arrived at 6 p.m. Together, she and Miss Black approached Patricia's locked bedroom door. Lucille called out to her daughter, her voice tinged with an edge of fear, but received no response. Attempts to unlock the door with the key were futile. the silence on the other side oppressive. The final hours of uncertainty stretched until 8 p.m. when family friend Peter Elser arrived to assist. Elser tried the key, but like Lucille, he failed to open the door. Determined, he asked Miss Black for tools and was handed a screwdriver by Miss Black's shaky hands. With a few deliberate movements, he removed the hinges and pushed the door open. The dimly lit room revealed a tragic scene. Patricia lay lifeless within. Lucille, her mother, ignored the pleas of those around her and stepped into the room. Oh, no, no, no. Overcome with grief, her sobs filled the silence as the weight of the discovery sank in. Elser, regaining his composure, escorted Lucille from the room and quickly contacted the police. It was a Sunday evening on October 24th, 1943, when the quiet luxury of Patricia Burton Lonergan's East Side Manhattan apartment gave way to chaos. The 22-year-old socialite, known for her vivacious and turbulent personal life, lay lifeless on her bed. She was naked, except for a white sanitary belt and napkin beneath which a tampon string protruded. Her reddish-brown hair, matted with dry blood, clung to her face, while deep gashes split her scalp. Blood was soaked through the sheets, the mattress, and onto the floor. Her arms, frozen in rigor mortis, were raised defensively as though she had tried to block her attacker. The brutality of the scene extended to her surroundings. Bruising on Patricia's neck suggested strangulation, a final act of violence even after the fatal blows to her head. Her legs bent at the knees, telling a story of struggle. Around the room laid shattered fragments of 2 green glass candle holders. Their pyramid-shaped brass bases bent and bloodstains. Yes, these are the actual candle holders. One base, heavy and dented on 3 sides, lay on the floor, while the other rested on the bed. Dr. Milton Helpern, New York's deputy medical examiner, later determined that these candle holders likely inflicted the devastating blows that caused Patricia's skull fracture. Further evidence painted a grim picture of desperation and resistance. Pieces of broken fingernails were scattered across the floor on both sides of the bed, evidence of Patricia's attempts to defend herself. This is basically a drawing of her bedroom and where everything laid. An artificial toenail painted light red was found loose on the floor, perhaps ripped off as she kicked at her attacker. Dry blood was discovered under the vanity table and chair, and other stains dotted the apartment. A bloody fingerprint in the bathroom and blood smudges on the molding in the bedroom doorway, the light switch in the bathroom, and plaster in the hall were all carefully cataloged by forensic experts. Despite these details, the technology of 1943 left investigators at a disadvantage. Dr. Alexander Weiner, stop it, Ryan.
I didn't say anything.
An expert in blood groupings and pioneer in identifying the Rh factor in blood, was brought in to analyze the evidence. Over the following weeks, Weiner scrutinized cigarette stubs found in the bedroom and living room, along with the bloodstains scattered throughout the apartment. Yet even his expertise couldn't extract definitive answers from the evidence. The fingerprint in the bathroom, though bloody, could not be identified with the era's limited forensic methods. Detective William Prendergast, one of the homicide squad's lead, worked quickly to piece together the events of Patricia's final hours. Among the first steps was contacting Deputy Assistant District Attorney John Lower, who arrived at the scene by 9 p.m. This is the same night of the discovery, so we're about an hour later.
Very quickly, we had a question in the comments about how long from the time that the upstairs maid heard the noise, which was around 9 a.m.?
9 a.m.
And then they actually break the door open around 7 p.m.?
8 p.m. So you're
Around
looking at
8
about
p.m.
11 hours.
11 hours.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
so we don't know if she died immediately or if maybe she was left to suffer and
Right.
okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, we don't know.
Okay.
I'll mention on something here a little bit that gives us a little bit more possibly about how quick was it. So he contacts, Detective William Prendergast contacts John Lower, who is the Deputy 88, who arrived at the scene at 9 p.m. By then, the press had already descended, clamoring for information. Patricia's high society life and estranged marriage to Wayne Lonergan were irresistible fodder for the tabloids, and they wasted no time sensationalizing every detail. After surveying the crime scene, Lower joined detectives at the 17th precinct to interrogate Peter Elser, Elizabeth Black, and Patricia's mother, Lucille Burton. The trio revealed two critical pieces of information. First, Patricia's estranged husband, Wayne Lonergan, had been in New York over the weekend and had visited their 18-month-old son, Billy, on Saturday. Second, Patricia had been on a date the night before her death with a man named Mario Gabellini. Now, Gabellini was located at his Lexington Avenue apartment around 11:30 p.m. that night. Like, they were on him within like 3 hours of the discovery. So, shocked to learn of Patricia's death, he willingly cooperated with investigators. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm finding a sickness.
It's probably easy for them to track him because a lot of those high-end, apartments have doormen.
Right.
They have people that open the door for you. They, you go past someone. It's not even back then. It wasn't just walk in and say, "Hey." People paid a lot of money to live in these buildings, so I'm sure his was pretty easy to verify.
Yeah. Well, he willingly cooperated with investigators. Initial suspicions were heightened when police discovered what appeared to be a blood-stained white shirt in his apartment. However, closer examination revealed it was merely a tomato-based meat sauce.
Of course it was.
Of course it was, yeah.
Hey, I had fucking spaghetti last night. Leave me alone over here.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, Gabellini was held as a material witness and interrogated for 12 hours. For the next week, he remained detained at a Manhattan house of detention under a $10,000 bail, which was later reduced to $5,000. Gabellini's questioning led detectives to interview other acquaintances, including Thomas Farrell, Gene Goodwin, but yet suspicion quickly shifted to Patricia's ex-husband, or estranged husband. Though evidence against Wayne Lonergan was initially scant, investigators zeroed in on his presence in New York during the weekend of the murder. His contentious relationship with Patricia made him a very natural suspect.
The husband always did it.
Mm-hmm.
The press quickly turned Patricia's murder into a spectacle. Every detail of her life, her wealth, parenting, social habits, and turbulent marriage was dissected for public consumption. Patricia's jewelry, valued at nearly $23,000 or $340,000 today, remained untouched, ruling out robbery as a motive. Among her most prized possessions were her pearl necklace and bracelet adorned with rubies and diamonds, each worth $2,500 or around $37,000 today. Her mink coat was valued at $1,500 or $21,000 today, and it was still inside the room as well. This media attention added immense pressure to the investigators, who pursued every lead with urgency. Yet, as the hours passed, suspicion continued to circle back yet again to Wayne Lonergan, and the detectives moved quickly. Detectives in New York had their first major break when they discovered Patricia's address book in her bedroom. Inside was a lifeline to Lonergan, his Toronto address, and his phone number. By the morning of Monday, October 25th, 1943, ADA Jacob Grumet, having been briefed on the details of the case, authorized a wire to Toronto police requesting Lonergan's detention. We are talking about the next day. They're like, we're on it. We got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't have rich people get murdered.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, while the streets of Manhattan were alive with whispers of murder, 500 miles away, Wayne Lonergan had no idea his world was about to collapse. The knock came early at Wayne Lonergan's Toronto boarding house. Detective Arthur Harris stood on the other side of the door, his presence as commanding as the case he'd been handed. When Lonergan opened the door, he appeared polished and composed, wearing a dark blue suit. But for all his calm demeanor, Lonergan couldn't hide the thin scratches on his chin and neck. Harris wasted no time addressing the elephant in the room, the murder in New York City. I just returned from there last night, Lonergan admitted nonchalantly. Yet when Harris pressed him about his uniform and why he wasn't wearing it, Lonergan faltered. He claimed it had been stolen in a robbery by a U.S. soldier named Maurice Worcester.
Oh, so changing already.
Mm-hmm.
Not Wooster the Rooster. It's Worcester now.
Wooster the Rooster. But I am going, so we don't have confusion, I'm just going to continue to call him Wooster for the rest of the story. But he does change the name at this point to
Worcester.
Worcester, Maurice Worcester. It just makes it easier for me to just call it Wooster. But just know he changed in this mode because it goes back to Wooster later on as well.
Okay.
So
yeah, so he can't even keep his lies straight. Got it.
Well, it was a convenient story, but riddled with holes. Harris, like any seasoned detective, knew better than to believe it. Why would a man in uniform need to steal another?
Mm-hmm.
The interrogation in Toronto continued to peel back layers of Lonergan's life. He spoke openly, even volunteering a vague account of his encounter with Wooster. I vaguely thought about it, he admitted when asked if he'd contemplated a sexual act. But the story, while salacious, felt rehearsed, a tale designed to deflect, not clarify. As much as the detectives in Toronto wanted to take charge on the case, they knew they had to wait for ADA Lower, who was on his way to bring Lonergan back to New York City. Lonergan's extradition began with a critical decision on October 26, 1943. We're 2 days past the murder now. Lower arrived with a plan. After being informed of the incriminating stories published in the New York press and realizing he had been publicly named a prime suspect, Lonergan finally consented to sign an extradition waiver. There was no lawyer present. And in later years, this would prove to be contentious. Lonergan believed it was the only way to clear his name, attend Patricia's funeral, and see his young son, Billy. But what Lonergan didn't know is that it was all a ruse. Patricia's funeral was already taking place that same afternoon in Manhattan under the cold, rainy skies, orchestrated by her grieving mother, Lucille. And by the time Lonergan was escorted back to New York, the wheels of public judgment were already in motion. ADA Grummet, who had been informed via telephone about the revelations of Lonergan's, as he put it, quote, perversion, added fuel to the fire of public scrutiny. And Grummet made sure of that. Grummet had been made aware of the tinier, intimate details that Lonergan had shared about his tryst with the serviceman Murray Wooster and how the occasion had led to the stolen uniform. And before Lonergan even set foot in Manhattan, Grummet disclosed his 4F draft classification to the press, which back then, I don't know if you know, means that moral reasons. They can't join because moral reasons typically fell under homosexual acts. He basically in earlier years he lied about being homosexual. Mm-hmm. He says he lied about being homosexual to get out of the draft. He was a draft dodger. Right. And it says here.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say moral reasons, Lonergan admitted, referring to his bisexuality. It was a revelation that Grummet delivered with thinly veiled disdain, and the press seized upon it like vultures. This pisses me off. I'm sorry. This pisses me off. Mm-hmm. The way this portion is described, it's like Grummet had an issue with this, so he went straight to the press and was like, you're never going to believe what I heard, just to slander the fuck out of this guy's name. I am not condoning anything at all, but this shit pisses me off. But anyway,
and this is a law enforcement official, correct?
This is a law enforcement official. Yes, absolutely.
Be better. Go ahead.
Yeah, no shit. Be absolutely better with that. Sorry, I had a picture I was going to actually show and forgot to load it up. So, anyways, by October 28th, 1943, Lonergan's face was splashed across front pages with the Daily News delivering the damning headline: Lonergan alibi, twisted sex. The media didn't hold back. The Journal American painted him as a, quote, degenerate killer and, quote, sex-twisted playboy with the crew-cut hair and the easy sneer. I feel like that could be a Sabrina Carpenter song right now. But anyways. Editorials reference...
Flash, crew-cut...
Editorials referenced his, quote, abnormal psychological nature, weaving a narrative that went far beyond the facts of the case to vilify the man himself. When Wayne arrived at the DA's office on October 27, 1943, the air was thick with anticipation. He was taken to room 608, where the interrogation would continue, this time for 12 additional relentless hours on top of the 12 hours already endured. In total, Lonergan would be interrogated nonstop for 84 hours.
And he still doesn't have a lawyer present at this point?
No.
Oh, okay.
84 hours, so they've exhausted him.
Yeah.
Right.
And at this point, any lawyer worth his salt would say he would just have confessed to get it over with, to make the talk, make the interrogations stop.
I don't know. And so far, he doesn't sound like he's a good person at all, but the police department does sound like it has a very
A bias.
like a bias and a moral vendetta against him. And they're just trying to make him seem as salacious as possible. So in the eye of the public, he's already guilty.
Yeah. Well, detectives led by Lower pressed Wayne to abandon his story about Wooster. It won't hold up in court, Lower warned. He framed the tale not only as implausible, but as self-destructive, reminding Wayne that it would degrade him further in the public eye. The press will have a field day, he said. To drive the point home, Lower shoved newspapers under Wayne's nose, their headlines screaming accusation of perversion and deviance. But Lonergan remained firm. He refused to confess to Patricia's murder and continued to insist on the truth of his alibi, no matter how degrading or implausible it seemed. But just when it seemed the case couldn't take another turn, it did. At 1 p.m. on October 28, 1943, while Lonergan was being interrogated, a tall, bespectacled man named Murray Wooster walked into the DA's office.
Okay.
He had read the morning papers and, to his horror, found his name linked to Lonergan's alibi. Married, a father of 3, and working at a defense plant in Connecticut, Wooster came forward to clear his name. It did turn out when Lonergan was brought in to face Wooster that the truth was told. Lonergan had never met this man. Wooster, it turned out, was nothing more than a convenient fabrication, a name plucked from the ether to lend credibility to a faltering story.
But he happened to come up with a name that was actually...
With the name!
Yeah.
And Wooster, what are the... I mean, pull Smith, pull, Jones.
Williams.
That's more likely to get a hit, but Murray Wooster.
Yeah.
And there's a real life Murray. I'm telling you, you had to have heard that name somewhere, though.
Amen.
Right.
I mean, that's
oddly specific.
It's an odd last name.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on. Sorry. That's lucky as hell, or I guess unlucky as hell. And the dude came forward and went, not it.
True, and there could be more than one Murray Wooster. I mean, just because he shows up and is like, hey, that's not me, that doesn't necessarily mean that he did not run into a Murray Wooster.
How many Murray Woosters do you think there are on the planet?
I mean, I'm sure there's not a whole lot of them, but that doesn't mean there's only one.
Well, the revelation further unraveled Lonergan's credibility and deepened the case against him. At this point, Lonergan had endured over 2 days of relentless pressure, 12-hour interrogations, endless accusations, and headlines branding him as a pervert and a killer. And by October 28th, the man was broken by fatigue and despair. At last, he cracked. I'll tell the truth, he told Grimmett, but the perversion, keep it out of the papers. It was his final desperate attempt to preserve some shred of dignity. By 2:45 p.m. on October 28th that afternoon, a stenographer was called in. Wayne Lonergan began to spin his version of the egregious act. Little bit of a disclaimer here for the level of violence. At approximately 8:30 a.m. on Sunday, Wayne Lonergan left the apartment. We're back on October 24th. Now,
so you're reading from what the stenographer took down.
This
that he confessed to. These
Wayne,
are his words.
These are his words.
Okay.
At approximately 8:30 a.m. on Sunday, Wayne Lonergan left the apartment of his friend Hargis, dressed in his Air Force uniform. I'm sorry, we're on October 23rd. Hargis's butler, Emil Peters, was not yet on duty and therefore did not witness Lonergan's departure. Following a 30-minute walk, backtrack. We are on 24th. See, I'm getting it confused. We're on the day of the murder. So, following a 30-minute walk, Lonergan arrived at Patricia's brownstone at 9 a.m., entering through the vestibule as the main door was unlocked. Lonergan knocked on Patricia's locked bedroom, which she opened moments later. She stood nearly naked and invited him inside, lying on the bed and covering herself partly with a sheet. Lonergan removed his hat and gloves, placing them on the side table beside 2 green glass candlesticks. He lit a cigarette, and Patricia did the same. The conversation between the estranged couple quickly turned acrimonious. Lonergan accused Patricia of excessive nightclubbing, calling her Belle of the El Morocco, and likening her behavior to that of a, quote, drunken sailor and a, quote, tart. Patricia shot back, branding him a son of a bitch and a dirty bastard, reminding him that his behavior was far from exemplary. When Patricia questioned when Patricia questioned why Lonergan had come to see her, he explained that he knew she was heading to the country and wanted to speak with her before she left. He urged her to, quote, take it easy for a while. Patricia's irritation only grew when Lonergan mentioned having lunch plans with a, quote, very pretty girl, a statement designed to provoke jealousy. She invited him to join her for lunch instead, but he declined, asserting that he could not break his existing plans. And the exchange escalated. Patricia grew furious, asserting her frustration at not being able to control every man. Remember, these are his words.
Right. That's
Question 2. How does he know she's going to the country? Because her Italian boyfriend called and wanted her to come to the country with him. So how does he know this? Do we know?
It never said, no.
She
So I don't know if they
him.
probably, with all these lump sum payments and things she's paying for in passing, she's probably said something to him, but it's never directly said about how he finds out about that.
All right.
Yeah, and just the whole, she was half naked, she laid on the bed, she invited me in. Dude, stop it. Just say, she opened the door, you started talking to her, you went in, you got pissed off. Go ahead, continue on with your fabulous story.
Finally, she ordered Lonergan to leave, pushing him when he failed to move quickly enough, screaming, get the hell out of here. She screamed at him to stay away and never return, threatening to take their son, Billy, away from him. According to Lonergan, this was the breaking point. He later stated that something inside of him, quote, snapped. In a moment of rage, Lonergan grabbed one of the green glass candlesticks from the side table and struck Patricia on the side of the head. The blow left a deep gash, but did not knock her unconscious. Bleeding, Patricia exclaimed, good God, what have you done? A scream that was likely heard by Annalise Schomburg, the upstairs governess. As the first candlestick broke into pieces, these are green glass thick-ass candlesticks.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about.
And you hit her hard enough to shatter it?
Yeah.
Okay.
As the first candlestick broke into pieces, Lonergan grabbed the second candlestick and struck Patricia again, this time harder. She jumped out of bed, swearing at him, but he quickly overpowered her. Facing her, he grabbed her from behind and wrapped both hands tightly around her neck. Patricia fought desperately, kicking and scratching at his face and neck, leaving visible marks. Despite her struggle, Lonergan's strength prevailed. He strangled her for what he estimated to be 3 minutes until she stopped moving. Horrified by the bloody scene, Lonergan noticed bloodstains on his glove and uniform. He went to Patricia's bathroom, wet a towel, and wiped the blood from the scratches on his face and neck, as well as from his uniform. However, the stains remained. Panicked, he fled the apartment, leaving Patricia lying naked on the bed. He stuffed the blood-soaked towel into his pocket as he exited. Taking a winding route to avoid detection, Lonergan returned to Hargis's apartment. There, he took a sedative and removed his uniform, again attempting to clean it, but failing. Realizing the stains were permanent, Lonergan retrieved his blue duffel bag, but found it too small to fit the entire uniform. He retrieved a pair of scissors from Hargis's bedroom and cut the uniform into small strips. These, along with the bloody towel, his shirt, tie, hat, gloves, trousers, socks, and wristwatch, which had blood on the leather strap, were placed in the bag. To add weight, Lonergan added one of Hargis's dumbbells, and also $100 in cash from his pocket. The cash was either forgotten or intentionally discarded to support the alibi that he was concocting. Lonergan then bathed, scrubbing away any lingering traces of blood, and dressed in clothes borrowed from Hargis's apartment. He went down, ate a hearty breakfast prepared by Emil Peters before leaving the apartment with the duffel bag. Carrying the bag, Lonergan walked towards the East River. Along the way, he was spotted by florist Ruth Forster, who recognized him and noticed the duffel bag. Upon reaching the pier, Lonergan climbed over the protective fence and hurled the bag into the water. It floated briefly before sinking. After disposing of the evidence, Lonergan walked west to Max Levinson's drugstore, where he purchased makeup to conceal the scratches on his face and neck. Returning to Hargis's apartment, he drank a beer provided by the maid and carefully applied the makeup. Lonergan then resumed his day as if nothing had happened. He picked up the toy elephant from Sylvia French's apartment, confirmed his lunch date with Jaberg, and returned to Patricia's apartment at 12:30 to leave the toy in the vestibule. Many have asked why he didn't meet Miss Black to establish a healthier alibi or even see his son to do the same. But more than likely, this is because he wasn't thinking clearly, as he knew what lied beyond Patricia's locked bedroom door, and his disheveled behavior was noted by Jaberg at their luncheon. He met Scherberg and her young son for lunch before heading to LaGuardia Airport. And when Lonergan finished he met Scherberg and her young son for lunch before heading to LaGuardia Airport. When Lonergan finished recounting the murder to Grumet, the Manhattan assistant district attorney, Grumet continued questioning him, focusing on financial details. Lonergan admitted Patricia provided him with $700 checks each month and that she was set to inherit $7 million from her grandmother. So he knew it. That's the other thing. Lonergan was finally arraigned in homicide court, charged with the, quote, brutal and unprovoked killing of Patricia. A grand jury heard his confession, reviewed the evidence, and indicted him for first-degree murder. Lonergan was shocked to face the possibility of execution by electric chair, believing he had been promised a plea deal.
What the fuck do you think was going to happen? You just murdered somebody in cold blood.
Well, you just missed what I just said. He believing he had been promised a plea deal.
Did he get it in writing? Did he have a lawyer? That's the thing. Like, if you they can tell you whatever the fuck they want to tell you.
Exactly.
Unless you have it in writing and you have a lawyer present, they can tell you, hey, we'll give you the moon if you just confess.
There is so much contention around how his confession came in that I'll get into
84 hours of interrogating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
this is the other part here. After he's arraigned and indicted for first-degree murder, ADA Grumet preemptively arranges for Lonergan to be evaluated by a psychiatrist. He was declared sane, nullifying any potential insanity defense. And on November 2nd, 1943, basically a week later, Patricia's will was filed in probate, revealing that Lonergan had been cut out entirely. The press publicized this detail, and Grumet used it, along with Patricia's threat to take away Billy, as evidence of Lonergan's motive. The confession painted Lonergan as a man consumed by jealousy, financial resentment, and desperation. With his indictment secured, the case moved into its second phase, one of the most sensational courtroom dramas of the era. The trial of Wayne Lonergan gripped the public, filling the courtroom with spectators and flooding newspapers with daily updates. At the heart of the drama was Lonergan, a man whose bisexuality became both a scandalous headline and a strategic focus for the prosecution. ADA Grumet relied heavily on Lonergan's confession, presenting it as the case's foundation. Now, meanwhile, Edward Broderick, I have a picture of him, Edward Broderick, Lonergan's outspoken defense attorney, argued that the confession was coerced, planting seeds of doubt about its reliability. Lonergan's sexuality, described as, quote, perverse in the press, subtly influenced the prosecution's approach and shaped the jury's perception, even as Grumet claimed to focus strictly on the murder itself. The confession quickly became the trial's centerpiece, with law enforcement officials testifying that Lonergan had willingly provided the detailed account. Broderick countered, insisting the confession was the product of intense pressure during Lonergan's Toronto interrogation, the 84 hours of interrogation. He suggested that Lonergan's bisexuality had made him an easy target for just judgment and manipulation. And these claims led to fiery exchanges in court, with Broderick accusing investigators of threats and taunts, including references to the electric chair. The prosecution denied these allegations, presenting witnesses who described Lonergan as calm and cooperative during his confession. And when the confession was read aloud, stenographer Henry Edward Vaccaro delivered a chilling account of the events. That's the guy who took his confession. Sorry. Mm-hmm. It was a heated argument, a struggle involving candlesticks, and Patricia's strangulation. That was it. But Broderick interrupted with sharp objections, but the vivid imagery left a very lasting impression on the jury. However, the confession also raised unanswered questions. Why had Lonergan discarded his RCAF uniform, and how had Patricia's bedroom door been locked from the inside? But despite these gaps, the prosecution capitalized on the confession's emotional weight. Witness testimonies deepened the narrative, with Peter Elser recounting his discovery of Patricia's body and Elizabeth Black describing her unease at the locked door. Grumet linked these details to the confession, presenting a cohesive case. Broderick challenged the witnesses, highlighting inconsistencies and proposing alternate suspects from Patricia's social circle, though his theories lacked evidence. As the trial neared its conclusion, the courtroom drew increasingly tense. Grumet's closing argument reinforced the confession's power, while Broderick implored the jury to question its credibility and the lack of concrete physical evidence tying Lonergan to the case. After prolonged deliberation, the jury came back and convicted Lonergan, not of first degree, but of second degree murder, basing their decision largely on his confession.
Because
But
it
the
was
fir-
not deemed to be in that wasn't why he went over there. It wasn't
Right.
pre-planned.
It was a
Bullshit.
crime
Go
of
ahead.
passion.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Go ahead.
Mhm.
But the first trial's verdict, delivered in early 1944, was not the end of the story. Procedural errors and appeals led to a second trial, initiated under Judge James Garrett Wallace. Known for his strict yet theatrical demeanor, Wallace brought a different energy to the courtroom. Jury selection began in March of 1944, with Broderick working to uncover biases against Lonergan, particularly regarding his sexuality. And the media frenzy resumed, with headlines continuing to exploit the quote, scandalous aspects of Lonergan's personal life. From the outset, Broderick adapted his defense strategy, intensifying his claims that Lonergan's confession had been coerced. What's up, Brian?
I feel like, we have a dead woman on our hands, and they are focusing more so on his quote-unquote perversion or his salaciousness and not on the actual matter at hand. What he does in his personal life, whatever. But he committed a murder, allegedly. We don't know. I mean, we do know, but we don't. But at the same time, like, why are we even discussing what he does in his
Because
personal
that
life? It
sells
makes...
the papers.
Yep.
It does, but like even in the trial seems to be very focused on that, and I think that's ridiculous.
Because that would be what a good prosecutor would go after, where they would question his morality.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, yes.
At the time, right.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like it's bugging me that she's kind of, even though she's laying here dead, she's kind of a side piece in this trial. It's more about like, oh, you were doing what with who and when and where? Oh, okay. So I don't know. It's bugging me.
Well, Broderick detailed allegations of mistreatment during Lonergan's detention in Toronto again, including psychological manipulation and deprivation. Grumet and his team countered with testimony from law enforcement, insisting the confession was voluntary. Lonergan himself took the stand this time, offering a passionate account of the alleged coercion. His testimony introduced a very personal element to the trial, drawing attention to the emotional and physical toll of his interrogation. The second trial's evidence phase echoed the first. Witnesses like Elizabeth Black, Peter Elser provided similar accounts, while Broderick revisited their inconsistencies in their testimonies. He sought to cast doubt on the prosecution's narrative, but again struggled to present a compelling alternative. Closing arguments brought the courtroom to a dramatic peak. Grumet depicted Lonergan as a man driven by rage, emphasizing the confession and its chilling details. Broderick attacked the confession's credibility, urging the jury to focus on the lack of direct evidence. And after lengthy deliberations, the jury delivered the same verdict as before. Lonergan was guilty of second-degree murder. And on April 17, 1944, he was sentenced to 20 years to life in Sing Sing prison. Well, the impact of the Wayne Lonergan case extended far beyond the courtroom, leaving an indelible mark on society, the media, and the legal system. At a time when World War II dominated global headlines, this trial managed to captivate the public with its mix of scandal, crime, and moral outrage. The case served as both a mirror and a magnifying glass, reflecting societal biases while amplifying the era's cultural tensions. Public reaction to the trial was deeply entwined with the glitzy yet tarnished world of New York cafe society. Media outlets, including the Philadelphia Inquirer, pointed fingers at this elite social scene, portraying it as a breeding ground for decadence and tragedy. To many, Patricia Burton Lonergan's murder seemed like the ultimate consequence of an indulgent and immoral lifestyle. Lonergan's bisexuality became a lightning rod for the public's judgment, with newspaper and magazines labeling him with slurs as, quote, pervert and, quote, degenerate. This trial was not just about a crime. It became a platform for reinforcing prejudices against the LGBTQ plus individuals. Time magazine and other outlets framed Lonergan's sexuality as a key factor in the murder, often relying on pseudoscience and sensationalist language to engage their readers. The media's appetite for scandal knew no bounds. The Lonergan case dominated front pages, pushing wartime updates to the margins. Writers like Walcott Gibbs criticized the absurdity of such obsessive coverage during a global conflict, yet the public's fascination with the trial persisted. Syndicated gossip columnists, including Walter Winchell and Dorothy Kilgallen, fueled the frenzy with dramatic accounts of courtroom proceedings and salacious rumors about Lonergan's private life. Headlines painted a picture of intrigue and betrayal, transforming the case into a morality play for an eager audience. Legally, the case raised important questions about the role of confessions in securing convictions. The so-called, quote, New York procedure left it to juries to decide whether a confession was voluntary, a practice that sparked heated debate. Lonergan's defense attorney, Edward Broderick, argued relentlessly that the confession was coerced, highlighting the risks of relying on such evidence. While the jury ultimately found Lonergan guilty, the trial brought attention to the ethical challenges of confession-based prosecutions, a topic that would echo in legal circles for years. Cultural biases were not limited to the courtroom. Lonergan's bisexuality was treated as a character flaw, both by the prosecution and the press. This framing reinforced the era's widespread homophobia, equating sexual orientation with immorality and crime. And today, the case is seen as a stark reminder of the societal prejudice LGBTQ plus individuals faced during this time. And it highlights the ways in which these biases shaped public opinion and legal outcomes. The trial's cultural impact extended into literature and film. It inspired works like Kenneth Fearing's novel The Big Clock and Carly Mills's A Nearness of Evil, both of which drew on the case's theme of wealth, betrayal, and moral decay. And decades later, the Lonergan trial remains a reference point in discussions about crime, justice, and media sensationalism. It's a mix of glamour, scandal, and tragedy that continues to captivate writers, historians, and audiences alike. The personal aftermath of the case was just as significant. Patricia's son, Billy, was placed under the care of her mother, Lucille Burton. Seeking to shield him from the crime's infamy, the family had his name legally changed, which I will not repeat. Legal battles over Patricia's estate also made headlines, and as her wealth became another point of contention, which eventually it just worked its way to Billy, is the way that it came about. These struggles underscored the far-reaching consequences of the murder, not just for the individuals involved, but for the generations that followed. The Wayne Lonergan case remains a powerful.
I figured I froze.
I thought Blake. Okay, sorry guys. I guess Blake froze.
Did I?
Yeah, you totally froze. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You said
My bad.
became a powerful something.
Became a powerful example.
There you go. Let's go with that. Yeah.
Literally, I'm in the last 3 lines. Chill out, Wi-Fi, or whatever the hell happened. The Wayne Lonergan case remains a powerful example of how society reacts to crime, scandal, and difference. It revealed deep-seated prejudices and challenged legal norms, all while captivating a public eager for drama. As much as it was a story of justice, it was also a story of judgment by the media, by the public, and by a system shaped as much by bias as by law. This trial wasn't just about solving a crime. It was about defining the boundaries of morality and fairness in a deeply divided era. I don't know. I love this case because it's not one that like we typically cover because, you know, sometimes we do these unsolved. You know, we try to do unsolved. This one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Here's how it happened. Here's your motive. Here's your killer. We got him. We arrested him. He's behind bars. He did serve 20 years. He did eventually get out of prison.
Oh, he did get out.
He did not die in prison. Well, you got to remember that he was born in 1918 and went to jail in 44. So he was only not even 40 yet at that point, right? Somewhere in there. He's like 30. Somewhere around there. Or 30. Yeah. I mean, well, no, sorry, he wasn't even 30 yet because she was 22.
Not yet. No, yeah.
She was 22. And she was born in 21, so he'd have been about 25 whenever he killed her.
Yeah,
so
he was pretty young whenever he went to prison.
He would have gotten out about 45 to 50 and been able to live on his life. But from what I understand, I was not able to. He like disappeared, like just straight up just disappeared. I'm sure if I dug a little bit deeper, I really relied on this book up here. Details Are Unprintable by Alan Levine to get everything I needed from it. That book goes so far in depth. There were some points where I'm just like, I don't need to know what position the curtains were when she bought her new home that she didn't get killed in. You know, it's like
she ate yogurt that morning, not regular yogurt, but light. It's just like who fucking.
Yeah. So with this, I think in general, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you finish then. So with this in general, what I was thinking is that at the end of the day, I believe he was guilty. I do believe there was premeditation because people who are innocent, they don't go to the extreme of the cover up. And
Right.
that's just all there is to it. He went to the point of the cover up. And then he even goes further to invent Wooster the Rooster didn't sound like a real dude to me. And why, again, like you said, why would a military person steal another military person's uniform? And that was something that hung up with me, him trying to steal it. And again, if he tried to steal it, but he wasn't successful, then where is your uniform?
Yeah.
So there were holes all in that didn't sound
Right.
credible to me right off the bat. But I think at the end of the day, I think he did go to prison just as he should have. I do believe that it should have been first degree murder, not second, because I think he came back with the intention.
That was my thing.
I think so too.
There's a sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you're making an excellent point because this isn't something that I really had time to go down on, but I knew we could possibly discuss. Is that was a point of contention with everybody with the verdict that came down. Why not first degree instead of second degree? Because there's so many people that are like, it's premeditated. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I'm going with that. Like, I think this shit was premeditated because he went that weekend with the intention of doing that, knowing full well because the way he's described on the plane is very fidgety and shaky, and like when he's arriving there, he knows what he's doing. He knows why he's there.
Yeah, well, again, it goes from he has just found out that he's been cut out of the will. He has never really been interested in being a father. His kid, well, if mama goes away, he'll probably get to raise the kid, which means he has control of the trust fund. And then this is what a good father is. He forgets the stupid present he bought for the kid.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I get something for you guys. Y'all ain't my children, but I'll be like, I can't wait to give this to you. I'm not forgetting that anywhere, you know? So I think that the timing is interesting. The fact that it's for a very short, and I know it's a furlough, but you just joined the Royal Canadian Air Force and suddenly you get a furlough. I'm calling a little BS on that too. So, because the immediate furlough is very strange too.
Right. And remember, he said that wartime restrictions on unessential travel, he paid someone to, so he had a plan. He knew what he was doing.
He got the necessary papers. That's the other thing, because Canada at that time was experienced like, there's a whole chapter on this in the book of why, not chapter, but few pages about why they were restricting non-essential tourist travel. That's exactly what they were restricting during this time. And it had to do with medical issues going on in the country and everything like that, and the war and whatnot, and just trying to cut back on non-essential tourist travel. And so, but he secured the paperwork to be able to do this. My thing is I think what happened was he got cut out of the will a week after he got kicked out of the apartment. And he went off to have his little tryst up at, Fire Island. Great. Woohoo. Good for you. And then the whole time came back until October, or came back, moved to Canada until October, was sitting there stewing on the fact that he had been kicked out of her will.
Right.
And knew that basically that his son was the beneficiary, and that therefore if he could get his hands on Billy, he could get his hands on the money.
And he wasn't going to get his hands on Billy while Patricia was alive.
Exactly.
Exactly. And something else about his alibi that's pretty thin. We were talking about the other soldier trying to steal his uniform. Why would someone who is a U.S. soldier be trying to steal a foreign soldier's uniform? That was another question that was brought up by Arthur Harris, the detective that knocked on the door to bring him in at first in Toronto. He was like, "Why would a Canadian Air Forceman's uniform be of any value to a U.S. serviceman?" Absolutely. It just makes no damn sense. But I'm with you. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. He got the essential papers. He got everything put into place. He was fidgety on the plane. He knew what he was going to New York for that weekend. He's pissed off. He's cut out of the will. He goes and he's going to like, I'm going to get this bitch and I'm going to get the kid and I'm going to get all of our money. That was. I'm totally with you.
If anything out of all of it, I will say this though, and I'm not condoning his behavior whatsoever.
No, not at all.
That a killer is a killer is a killer. However, treating somebody the way that they treated him is kind of fucked up.
Right.
Just basically, I mean, that's completely out of line. Like, just basically when it pertains to his and throughout the whole book, it's the alleged bisexuality, because it never came out of his mouth that, yes, I am. There are interviews in his past that allude to him being bisexual and stuff like that. But to completely just slander a person before they even stepped foot in America, the ADA knew what he was doing. He went before the media and basically, with disdain in his voice as they wrote it, was like, oh yeah, he's into all this stuff. This is what he does. This is what I just found out. And just let the media run with it. That's so
and here's the thing, while a lawyer today would be able to say, you know what, you've tainted the jury pool that I have here. I want this moved to somewhere where nobody has heard this story, or that, you know, but then back then, that was an accepted bias that you could use. Now, again, a good lawyer should have been able to argue that because you have basically tried this in the press, that should have been a way to at least get it thrown out, or at least to have the first trial deemed a mistrial, so that nothing, you know, you've tried it in the press, and they should have put a gag order on it so nobody could say anything. Again, they had the second trial. Again, that you're still going from the same jury pool though, and that's where my issue would be. So, but I think he did it. I'm glad he went to jail for it. And I'm sorry for the way he was treated publicly. But what he did privately to that woman, a million times worse.
But yeah, that's a million times worse.
So
like I said, I'm not condoning anything, but I don't know. Just when it doesn't really matter to me, like who is involved. I don't know. You just don't out people. You just don't out people.
Dude, I mean, but like,
you know, I mean, and the way that he's treated by that, like, I don't know. That's the only part about that. I know, but that's the only part about this story that I feel any type of
it's yellow journalism. It's yellow journalism. It was done for sensationalism, and it was done to sell a paper.
Yeah.
And there's so many cases that you can look back throughout history and see this happening. And if you don't fit in if you don't fit in this particular box that they want you to fit into, there have been so many people who have been arrested for something just on suspicion, because people are like, oh, well, this person doesn't fit in this box. And, you know, people have been, you know, interrogated without lawyers because of that, and gotten false confessions because of that as well, you know. But yeah, this, not condoning what he did, but like you said, this whole deal with his whole other side being put on trial versus the murder being put on trial is ridiculous.
See, and that's the other thing that bothered me, is it ended up becoming more about the trial of his sexual orientation than it did about the murder of his wife.
Right.
Yeah, it was the duality of the trial, and depending on which, if you don't like the fact she was murdered, okay, great. If you don't like the fact that he's bisexual, great. Look, you can convict him across the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was given, you know, he was on trial in two different ways. Well, I'm glad that we all agree on that tonight.
I know. Here's the thing. I knew I picked this one that we were going to all agree. Usually on true crime, usually it's you two that don't agree. But I knew for a fact we were probably going to agree on this one. I just like this one because it's a different form of true crime than we've done before.
Right.
You know, it is, we're used to the, you know, your average American family true crime, if you want to call it that. This is high society. This is like the elite being murdered, you know, so, and then the scandal and all that shit. Yeah, a lot of the scandal and all of that stuff, the sensationalism that came along with it. I was like, I need to cover this. It's very interesting. So,
well, I think you did a very good job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, and with that, since we all agree, Blake, why don't you tell them everything they need to know?
All righty, sounds good. After I spoke for an hour and 45 minutes, y'all get to hear my voice just a little bit longer. Seasons 1 through 3 of After Dark with EVP are streaming now on Paraflix Paranormal Plus, with season 4 filming soon. Watch Paraflix on Amazon Fire, Roku TV, Apple TV, iOS, and Google Play. You audio listeners, you can find that sign-up link in your show notes, but show notes? Sorry. Anyways, that didn't sound right when it came out. But everyone can find it on our Facebook and our X profiles on Wednesday mornings. Click that Linktree link for easy access to Paraflix, and don't forget to use the code AFTERDARK25 for 25% off your annual subscription. Want to show or support the show directly? Check out our Patreon page, which is also linked in our link tree. For just $5 a month, you'll unlock over 400 exclusive videos, including the pre and post broadcasts, which are the 30 minutes before and the 30 minutes after all of our live broadcasts. It also includes never before seen footage, including those infamous dirty Estes methods. So plus your support helps us keep bringing these ghostly adventures week after week. If you're not sure about joining Patreon, try it risk-free with our 7-day free trial. Make sure you stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, many more by searching Everything Vaguely Paranormal and looking for that green sound wave, or by clicking the icons at the top of our link tree. We are close to our next goal on YouTube, so if everyone could please click that subscribe button, we would greatly appreciate it. And remember, to you audio listeners, you can catch us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. And a few announcements we haven't said yet. Do you want to meet us in person? Well, guess what? We got a few.
Why.
Yeah, I know. Well, guess what? We got a few things that we're going to tell you about coming up February 28th through March 2nd, right, Shelley? We have the Missouri Paracon that we will be at. We will also make sure that these are linked into our link tree. Just give us some time to get the links into there. So you can catch us there, Missouri Paracon, February 28th through March the 2nd. You can also catch us at the Paranormal Rockdown in Broadhead at Broadhead Manor on July 18th through the 19th. That is in Wisconsin. Then we will be at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, July 25th through the 27th. And we will also be at the Rock Island Row House Esoteric Expo on October the 4th.
There you go. You got it out there.
Those are all the ones that we have.
That we've agreed to, but we don't have the date on yet, so we'll let you know whenever we get
Exactly. So far we've got 4 Paracons you can come see us at. We will make sure that the links to the tickets are on our link tree as well, so you can easily find those too. So make sure you subscribe to our Eventbrite page to be notified when public investigation tickets go on sale, because we are about to start posting our events for the 2025 investigation season, and you don't want to miss out on that. We are very grateful for your continued support. Every like, comment, share, and download keeps these adventures alive. So if you have a favorite episode, share it with your friends. Make sure you tag us. But if you have a story, comment, or question, you can send those. Or if you would like us to be a guest on your show, you can send those to the evppod@gmail.com, THEEVPPOD@gmail.com. We are still taking submissions for our February 11th show, where we are bringing listeners and viewers onto the show with us. If you have a paranormal story that is scary, horrific, funny, whatever, send it to theevppod@gmail.com, THEEVPPOD@gmail.com. Submissions will be over on February 1st. We will pick the top 5. Those 5 people will be getting an email from us on how they can get on the show, and you will get to come on with us and tell your story. Please make sure that it's about 10 minutes in length tops. So
tops. Yep. So go like, share, and subscribe to that YouTube page. And thank you to everybody who's already sent in stories. They're good. We've got some good ones in already.
Well, I was waiting for the like, share, and subscribe. So you already said it. It went right over my head. It's okay. It's been a long night for me.
Well,
let's wrap this up then. We want to thank you guys for joining us tonight.
We thank y'all for joining us for another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. For myself, I am Blake Smith. My partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt, Mr. Ryan Roberts. As always, we will see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
well, see you later.